So, welcome to this session called System Innovation, Enabling the Green Transition, the Swedish Way. So some of you might have joined us yesterday in the short talk we had, and today we will explore these topics in more depth. And to the audience, just remember to use the live chat if you have any questions. And before we start today, I will present first myself. I'm Charlotte Andersen, Program Director of the Strategic Innovation Program, Swedish Mining Innovation. And today I have with me part of the innovation cluster, two of the biggest mining companies in Europe, and also a project manager for one of the biggest European projects within this field. So welcome Jenny Greber, Vice President Technology LKAB, Niklas Dahlström, Senior Project Manager for the Next Gen Sims project, and Anders Sand, Research Director Boliden.
Thank you.
So I represent, and all of us, the innovation cluster, and more specifically the Swedish innovation program, Swedish Mining Innovation, where we gather all these stakeholders to meet the big societal challenges we have within Swedish mining innovation and to drive this transformation and accelerate the transformation to obtain a sustainable metal and mineral value chain. And we have been working now for around 10 years, and today we will discuss this in more detail. So I will start with some small questions to you then. So why do, the most interesting question would be, why do we even need mines?
I'll start with answering that. Well, the modern society of today is built upon the use of metals and minerals. And in order to get hold of these metals and minerals, we need to mine them first. Of course, we should also focus on maximizing recycling, but we need the primary metals and minerals for our everyday life. Also, very important, of course, for the green transition.
So, do you want to add something to that, Anders?
Maybe if I add to the topic of green transition, we all know that we are in such a phase where we very rapidly need to change the way society works. But then talking about mining versus recycling or other secondary raw materials, the numbers don't add up if you would rely only on secondary sources. And the more growth you have in metal demand, the more primary mining you will need as well.
So that was actually my next question. So secondary would then be recycled sources. So yes. What you're saying is that it's not enough what we have today if we want to continue to live like we do now and change and do a green transformation.
Yeah, and to add a little bit even more about that, I mean, we talk about the global green transition. That means, I mean, it's not just for us in Europe, and if we look at the population in the world, it is highly increasing. So it will be even higher demand of primary resources, of course, globally, and we are a part of the global world.
So we often talk about a sustainable metal and mineral value chain and sustainable mining. So what is that? What does it mean? Anders, could you develop that a bit further?
Well, if we start from that point, maybe what is a sustainable value chain in general? And I would say as maybe one type of definition, it could be that you have a value chain that provides something of importance to society with as low negative impacts as possible to the environmental and social aspects. Related to the mineral and metal value chain in specific, I would say it is a lot of topics related to resourcefulness, maybe primary versus secondary resources. And also with primary and secondary resources, I would say also that there is no conflict between mining and recycling, as many people put forward, because for the transition we will need the raw material from any possible source. And that, of course, includes the secondary sources as well.
So a sustainable metal and mineral value chain then includes both material coming from a mine and recycled material?
Definitely. And also looking even broader at the value chain, manufacturers also need to think about how can they produce the products so that they are more easy to recycle. So it depends also how broad you look at the value chain itself.
So, Jenny, what would you say is the challenge with sustainable mining?
Well, sustainable mining, of course, refers to the three different perspectives on sustainability. It's economic sustainability, it's social sustainability, and environmental sustainability. And within all of these three aspects, we have challenges, of course. And I think when we talk about sustainability, we often almost think about environmental sustainability, but I think the other two are, of course, equally important.
Okay, so thank you very much for that introduction. Now we will move on to showing one of the biggest projects, a system demonstrator of this. So we would like to show you a movie illustrating this project, and then we will further develop into discussing the development of this project. Okay, so now we just discussed like a bit of the background, why do we need mines, but the theme of today is enabling innovation. So this was an example of one big project that shows system innovation and is a system demonstrator that we are in the middle of now. So we can see that you have amazing results. So what is this project that we saw. Niklas, could you please tell us a bit more about this project?
Yeah, this specific project is called NextGen Sims. The key aspect of the project is actually to have autonomous and carbon neutral mine processes. So we are developing them. We are a consortium where we are 5 different mining companies, 4 from Europe and 1 from Australia. We have technology providers and technology developers, and we have 2 universities, the university in Luleå in Sweden and together with the Aachen University in Germany. So we are in this field world-class leading consortia. And to be able to do what we are doing, I mean, when we talk about autonomous and carbon neutral mining processes, in this project we are sort of focusing quite a lot about the autonomous material handling underground. But to be able to have that, it's not just to put down those machines. You need to have a mine design that enables that. You need to think about how can it be carbon neutral. Then we need to have electric machines. And then you need to be able to reload and recharge the batteries. You need to have positioning systems that we most of the time don't have today. We need to have 5G, so that is why we have, for example, Ericsson. We have the newest machine development from the technology provider Eproc, and so on. So to be able to do this kind of project, as we put in the cube there, more like a model, we are actually piloting and developing those different technologies in 11 different mine sites from our different partners with quite different conditions. So that is how we work with this system innovation and to sort of move and accelerate the impact that we can do. And the 3 overall impacts in this project is minimize environmental impact. It's to have an even higher operation efficiency and safety and job creation. And we talk about this as a paradigm shift, sort of working and developing the no-enter mine, the mine where skilled people most of the time are working above ground and where you have autonomous or semi-autonomous machines doing the operation below ground.
So where are you now? Are you like finished with this, or is this just the starting point, or what would you say?
The film we made actually around Christmas time, and then we was in the halfway of the projects. So we had done 18 out of 36 months. So now we are a bit later than that, and we have a lot of demonstration and deliverables to reach now, and it's of course really challenging. I mean, this is not easy, but we have a very strong consortia, and we feel that we are taking not small steps, but quite large steps every month.
So what would you say what kind of effect would this have maybe on a global level?
I mean, you introduced LKAB and Boliden as some of the largest mine companies in Europe, and they are really in the front of how to use sustainable and efficient, safe technology. And them together with our 3 other mining companies, they explain their needs for the rest of the project. And they have large mining operations, but in the global aspect, not that large. But then you have the technology providers and developers and the universities, and they are sharing and selling, of course, this kind of sustainable, efficient, safe technology around the world. So it will give a much larger global impact than the thing that we will see within the EU.
So a big step or an acceleration towards the absolutely, completely sustainable mine then?
I mean, we shall always understand that you will have some sort of impacts, even in a very sustainable mine, both locally and within the society. But we need as well to understand how can we do it in the best possible way? And if we don't do it, if we continue to buy most of those kind of products from other continents, what is the impact there? We are all, again, talking about a global sustainability, a global green transition.
So to do this, you describe it like we are doing system innovation, but what is that? How is that different from a normal project? Jenny, maybe you could elaborate a bit on that.
Yes, system innovation, that indicates that we are looking for radical changes on system level, as opposed to like small incremental steps of development. So system innovation in itself means that we need collaboration among many different kinds of partners, because we're not only looking into here technical development that's needed, we also need development related to legislation, policy, but also infrastructure. So we need to include those types of partners as well to take those big steps that characterizes system innovation.
So this would then be maybe a system demonstrator, or how would you describe that? What is a system demonstrator?
Yeah, I think what Niklas just told us about in the movie we saw, that's a very good example of a system demonstrator. That's many different partners contributing with their specific part of this, coming together to show something in a real environment and show that it actually works. So I think this is a very good example of a system demonstrator.
So Anders, then, what would you say is the benefit of having this kind of live system demonstrator instead of like doing this in a lab or in an artificial environment?
Well, I would say the system demonstrator, or maybe also partly system innovation, that is in a way maybe the last step. So it will have been preceded by a lot of lab scale testing and so on. So it's at the very high end of the TRL scale when we move to a system demonstrator. And I would say one benefit, as I see it, is partly what Jenny was commenting on here, that you will do things more in parallel, maybe, so you are moving faster forward. That also means that you have done certain choices already. That should you have, what kind of power source should you have, for instance? Should it be electric or hydrogen or a fuel cell or whatever? Then you will have made a certain choice going forward. And that makes you move fast, but it also includes certain risks. So when you move to this level, you have to be sure of the decisions you have made.
So would you say that all of this is sort of, it's something you have worked with for quite some time, or is there still room for some new things in that sense? Do you understand what I mean with that question?
I would say we are definitely not in goal yet, especially not with all aspects of this demonstrator, even if we moved quite far ahead through the project. Also looking back, we have had similar projects before, like even the name NextGen Sims. That's kind of the next generation project from a Sims project before, and we can go even further back, and then we have also other projects that worked with the same principles or approaches, or even to some extent the same type of challenges.
Yes, Niklas wanted to add something to that.
Yeah, because what Jenny and Anders are saying here is about the bit larger scope and the accelerating innovation process. What we shall not forget about that is, of course, the humans, the skilled people who shall be attracted to work in those future mines. And that is why we, for example, in this project has 2 out of 10 focus areas when we are working specifically how to educate the people who shall work there, both the mine workers for today, but the mine workers for tomorrow. And as well, we are talking about and learning quite a lot about what kind of tools do we need there. Because, I mean, to have this sustainable, efficient, safe mines, we need to have and attract talented people. This shall be their first choice, or at least one of their first 5 choices. So we need to sort of be even better as well to communicate how the sustainable mine is a absolutely necessary enabler for the green transition.
So, I mean, this project didn't start in like one day. So we in this cluster have been working quite some time with this to achieve where we are today. Before this, with system was a buzzword and anything. So Jenny, what would you say, what has been sort of the prerequisites for this? So how did it become so that our industry choose this path, and how has this journey been like? A bit of a story, maybe.
Yeah, okay. I think in Sweden we are known as being early adopters. That's one of the prerequisites. We're also known for our, I would say, collaborative spirit. And the Swedish mining industry has been here for very many years. We're also a very small country, and in order to be competitive, we had to collaborate with the equipment and system suppliers that we have in Sweden. So it's in the DNA, I think, at least in the mining industry, to actually get help from others to become successful and to become competitive on a global level. So I think it started very early with that very tight collaboration between the suppliers and the mining companies, and then also the last 40 years also with academia and institutes. So we have this a little bit in our DNA, and I think that's one prerequisite. It's also very important to have this, I would say, openness and daring to trust partners, and that's also, I think, a bit of a culture. We have it. It's more difficult, I think, in some situations, but it is, I would say, a general feeling, at least among the partners in this project, that we have this trust and this openness, and that's also a key.
So how long time? I mean, this is sort of describing an innovation cluster, actually.
Yes.
You have all the different partners. You have academia, you have the industry partners, public society, and institutes, and also, of course, like the program that is hosting the session as well, funding from the government. So how long time do you think it took to sort of form this innovation cluster? Or is it, I mean, maybe we are still forming the innovation cluster.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think we are, Charlotte, and I think, of course, we are improving every day. But I would say beginning of this century, 2000, then we started to see the more formalized collaboration, at least within the mining industry. We had a think tank called Bergforsk, where the big companies, along with academia, had sort of a meeting point to discuss where do we need to be in the future and how should we get there? What kind of instruments do we need in place? For instance, a strategic innovation program. There's always also been a very good dialogue, I think, with the Swedish authorities that are funding these type of instruments. They have been listening to our industry partners. But since early 2000 sometime, then we started formalizing it. And the Swedish Mining Innovation is one innovation program. We had initiatives before that as well. We had the Gruvforskningsprogrammet, and we had something called SMIF, a big project also with European partners. So we have done this, I would say, more or less formalized more than 20 years, for more than 20 years, and very formalized, I would say, the last 15 years.
So a journey.
It's a journey.
Still a journey. So how far would you say, Anders, are we on this journey? I mean, if we're looking sustainable extraction now of metals and minerals, what are the most pressing challenges right now?
I would say we will never maybe reach the situation where we would say that we are totally sustainable and there's nothing more to do. So definitely, but I would also say that I think we are much further than most people would think, and even when it comes to not only people in general but also people in the industry, some aspects of the SIMS projects we are rolling out now as an implementation phase in our mines. So certain parts of automation, like drill automation, we are already at maybe 70-80% level of automation in some mines. So we are very far ahead. And I would also say there that it might even have become a problem in European projects, that the discrepancy between the level we are at in the industry and what kind of projects researchers want to work with is now such that we have done already things and started implementing what others see as research topics still. So we are quite well ahead.
So Jenny, you wanted to add something.
Yes, I wanted to add how can we become better? And I think to actually do these really big radical changes, we test them and we actually implement parts of them now. But there are things where we need more help. And I think one good example is that our sector in Sweden was among the first, or it was actually the first sector to develop our own fossil-free agenda, stating that we have the goal to become fossil-free, and we need to do it in these steps, and this is when we're going to be fossil-free. And what we're doing now, we're developing these technologies and implementing them. That works up until a certain level. But after that, we need this system innovation approach. We need the authorities, we need access to green energy, we need the legislation that allows us to have autonomous vehicles and so on. So then we need this next step of collaboration to do these really radical changes and roll them out, I mean, in full scale.
So would you say an even broader collaboration, or that's what you would say, including more actors, more players, and of course then governmental or new instruments as well?
Yes,
or?
I think we do, and we have, like we described, had a very tight mining cluster for the last 20 years. I think it's critical now in the future and in our next steps to widen that cluster, and especially with the other key enablers that we need to actually have this implemented in full scales, you know, in a few years from now, hopefully.
Yeah. So would you say that that is sort of the pressing challenge right now?
It is.
Yeah.
It is, and it is for us to align with the heavy technology development that we are driving, to align that, to align authorities and providers of green energy and electricity and so on, to actually be aligned with our pace. And this is, I think, on a societal level, a big challenge.
Sorry, Niklas.
The same there to sort of have the possibility to look a bit further than just next year or 3 years from now. You need to understand the conditions, for example, about green energy. That is one of the key issues for us, as well, of course, as how do you can think about permitting processes or a step like that. And the further you go away from direct technology development, the more we need to widen our cluster. And that is, of course, the organization and the authorities that Jenny were talking about. That is as well for us in the business to be even better to work with our different SMEs, to have their force and curiosity and brave to add into our consortia as well. And we are working with it, but we can do more.
So Anders, again, what would you say? Would you agree with Jenny and Niklas a bit about the pressing challenges? Or
I would definitely agree with that, yes. And I think now, since a topic of today is system innovation, we have our own system where we are innovating, but then you have other systems which our system will interlap together with. So definitely you need also wider society and authorities as support for certain aspects we cannot do ourselves.
So the theme of the day is, of course, system innovation, and I will continue a bit on that. Do you think, I mean, what kind of role does like a strategic innovation program, what kind of role does that play in this entire system, would you say? Jenny, maybe you can comment a bit on that.
Yeah, I think it has a very important role, and I think we can see that historically also, that this type of instruments, that they are supported by our government, and actually this one is actors driven, so it means that we have some public funding in this instrument, but it's also governed by the actors, and they are also contributing with about half of the worth that we do innovation for. And I think it's fundamental because it allows also actors that are smaller than my company and than Anders' company to actually be in this kind of innovation cluster, get help with funding, get help with contacts, improve their abilities. And it's also a matter of building a critical mass that are focusing their development and attention towards a certain challenge or a certain sector or something. So I think it's really important to build this system, and the system is needed. We can't just be standalone companies running this. We need education, we need SMEs, we need the whole system, institutes, academia.
So a bit follow-up. Sorry, you wanted to add something to that?
I agree, of course, with Jenny, and I would say that if we wouldn't have something like Swedish Mining Innovation or other types of ways to gather the different actors, we would work much more sequentially. It would be much more bilateral work, and we would move much slower. So I think this is very important to make the drive that we can put together bigger consortia and solve a bigger challenge together. It wouldn't be possible otherwise.
So now we are talking about the system and system innovation. We need a lot of different actors, but I mean, I guess you would also need innovation or research on other levels in the system as well to even get to that level. Or could you go directly to system innovation, gather all the stakeholders, go on, make the big acceleration, transformation? Anders, could you?
This is a very interesting question that I have been thinking about too, because I think in the mining cluster in Sweden we have been quite successful because we have been working together for a long time, and we have built trust and we know each other's competences. I think it would be quite tricky if you would make the decision that, okay, now let's do system innovation about this, and then put together people that haven't had that experience of working together before and expect a good result. I think it would be a quite difficult challenge to do that.
So what you're saying is it started maybe on a smaller scale and it grew to system innovation.
Yes. And even if we are a tight-knit cluster in many ways, it doesn't exclude new actors from joining, but we have a certain base and then we want to build on that base in different ways.
So Jenny, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, and I mean, to achieve those radical changes, you need big radical steps, but they are formed by the smaller steps that you put together. So you need this in smaller projects, like very isolated things that are part of this bigger solution that you need. But I also want to comment on when we talk about basic research as compared to this more applied development and research. I think it's very important not to forget that we also need a big component of basic applied research or basic research aiming at some sort of application in the future, because that's the fundamental stone that we need, the building block to reach this higher level innovation. So I think we mustn't forget those. We talk a lot about implementation and we need effects now, but there is something before that, and this also needs to be highlighted.
So we need an entire, to create an innovation cluster or to create change or to drive this, we need an entire system that includes basic research, all the actors. That's basically what you're saying from that.
Yes.
So coming back a bit to the Next Gen Sims project, Niklas, you have been involved in this for many, many years. So what would you say, what is your key learning on this journey?
I should say it's very, very important if you go for large projects like Sims was and Next Gen Sims is now, that you are working together with the partners you want to have in a very early stage. So you don't plan everything like 3 partners and then you want to sort of 10 other partners to jump into the boat and be there with you for 3 years. So it's a lot of preparation work. And of course, if you have the knowledge about different actors from the beginning, that is of course very good. Don't be afraid about putting in new partners as well, but be very aware about that everybody who wants to be a part of a large project like this has been sort of with you together doing the preparation work. So you actually are doing what you want to do and believe that you will do. Because in a project like this, for most of the time it's 36 months, it's a really, really high speed on everything. We try to accelerate, we try to challenge each other, and we are from different cultures and different countries with a bit different conditions. So that together with trust. And when you have a solid group of partners, we have talked about the Swedish innovation cluster in the mining industry here, but when you have, for example, a European or even wider international collaboration actors, try to remain contacts with quite a few of them, because maybe the third or the fourth project with the same core of partners, that is when you really, really can accelerate and take those quite large steps all in the beginning of the projects.
So if you were to apply this on something else, let's say what could you take if there is something, Niklas, from the Next Gen Sims project, for example, let's say you would take this, the project, the key elements or something and put it in something else. Is there something you could besides what you have already told me, is there something else you could add
I should
to that?
say like this, I mean, in some ways, it's easy for a large company to sort of talk with some smaller companies, and they are specialized, and you order something, and it's quite easy, and you take small steps. And that might be quite good. But if you want to take the next step and work with this system innovation and do those sort of paradigm shifts, you, as a company, needs to be willing to put some effort, money, good skilled people to run those projects. Because if, I mean, for example, Boliden, LKAB, Epiroc in this consortium, among with others, they have very skilled people for being project managers in this kind of projects. And that is very, very important. And if I should say something, we have already talked about trust and the same goals and the large challenges. But if we shall say something, you need to have that sort of competence and that sort of willness in your company if you shall be a player in those kind of projects.
So you have to want to collaborate, and you have to be open, basically, and a bit transparent and willing to include others. Is that, if I understand you correctly?
Exactly, and maybe you don't see everything about the road that you will take. So you need to be able to sort of risk a little bit more, put maybe a little bit higher stake on the table, but then you might increase so much more.
What would you say, Anders? Could you add something to that? Is there any element, if you look at the system, that are transferable?
I think, as Niklas said, maybe the project management aspects, that's very important, because you have certain pieces or clusters that you at some point want to put together at a certain timing as well. So that requires quite tight control of the project. Oh, now I lost track. What was your question?
If there are key elements that are transferable of this kind of system innovation. I mean, the project is an example of that, so I think you a bit said project management, but if there is anything else that you would say, take this and put it somewhere else.
Yeah, okay. Definitely there is transferability, but I think also that you shouldn't consider this as the only good way to run a project. It is suitable for certain type of challenges, and maybe usually when you start from the back or front, depending how you see it, that what is the situation we want to achieve, and then you look at how can I put that down into individual smaller challenges. But you also need other types of innovation to work in parallel with the system innovation.
Jenny, could you add something?
Yeah, I think we have we have some room for improvement here. And when we talked about what is system innovation, I mentioned that we need different types of actors, like, for instance, authorities or other types of actors that own the questions that not the mining companies or the technology developers own. And I think we need to really make sure that we include those so that they understand the progress that we have on the technology development, so that they can move at the same pace with the required legislation, for instance, or infrastructure, for instance, railways or whatever. And I think this is something that this is how we have to step up to build this as a system better, so that we have this communication. What do we need then in order to actually make this reality as a system, as a society? And I think this is where we can be much better than we are today. So, for instance, including decision makers when we communicate our results and very early and our aims, and of course for the very big initiatives, not for all the smaller projects. But I think here we are not in pace now with some parts of this, and we could be much better.
We could improve.
Yes.
That's of course good as well.
Yes. Mm.
So I will come back to that a bit later, but if you were to give advice to someone else that, okay, we also want to do a system demonstrator, such as this project, what would you say then?
Yeah, my I think most important advice is to choose the right partners. And we talked about that we have to have the same goals. We have to have this openness and transparency. We tend to look at just what can they provide, as what part of the technology can they provide, but we have to look even further. Are they open? Are they willing to share their results? Will we have severe IP discussions in the late end of the project? We have to try to avoid these hurdles, I have to say. So choose your partners right, and not only based on what kind of technology they can bring into the project.
Niklas, some advice? Yeah, I mean, I think what Jenny said was really spot on. But then what we talked about a bit earlier, to sort of incorporate all the partners in a very early stage when you are doing your application, and don't be too scared about if maybe one or two or maybe three partners in quite late stage in the application process, this might be a good project, but not for us. It's so much better that you have that kind of discussions there, even if you are always in a hurry. And then spend some time looking for partners, maybe from other sort of businesses as well, because we have, of course, like all businesses, so much to learn from other businesses. So you don't need to develop everything by yourself in that kind of consortium. So if you have a place here at the ladder, start there, not here, and then go for it.
Anders, some final advice?
This was very good advice, so I can only agree with that. Maybe if I add something, I will go back to something mentioned in the beginning, and that's maybe to remember the social aspect as well. Because now when we have done this system demonstrator in a real mining environment, then of course the people working in that mine, they have come in contact with the work at an early stage. And that also means that they feel also somewhat invested in what we are doing, and they are much more positive to automation, for instance. So I think this is a good learning experience as well. That don't forget the social part and the people working in the mine.
So now from all of you, one do and one don't. Start with the don't.
Oh.
Or a key element, maybe.
When it comes to successful system innovation.
Yes.
The don't forget the relevant parts that you actually need to make this radical change, which means that we cannot join just only technology development here. We need the other aspects as well, infrastructure, legislation, everything.
Niklas, short do and don't.
Don't forget about encourage all partners to really be ambassadors for the project. And do dare to feel trust.
Anders?
maybe don't forget about the risk management aspect. So maybe in short, you could say don't run in the wrong direction. When you start with a big system demonstrator or system innovation, when you have to rely on certain criteria to work, then you have to make sure that you make good decisions from the start. Of course, there are ways to do minor adjustments during a project if something doesn't work as you planned, but the critical parts needs to be correct.
So thank you very much. With that, I will leave you with some keywords here today. So we say the team, continuity, openness, and collaboration, and of course a bit of capital as well. Thank you very much for listening to us, and please check out our LinkedIn site and our website. Thank you.